Hey guys, what's going on? Today we're just going to pick up where we left off on Tuesday, and that's acting as the prosecution and doing our direct examinations. So, we left off on Marcia Snow, and let's just keep a few things in mind before we get started. With direct examinations, remember, the witness is really the sole focus of all this. We just kind of want, as attorneys, to guide the conversation in the way that we want. And again, even in real life, the direct examinations are going to be somewhat staged, and everything that's going to come out of the witness's mouth, the attorney will already have been prepared for and already know. So again, acting as prosecution, trying to take down Andrew and get him committed for these crimes. So let's first off make sure you have your case packets out. Also, the direct examination sheet that I'd sent to Professor Blue that hopefully you have. So, taking a look at Marcia Snow under the case packet, because that's where we left off Tuesday. And Marcia has a few things that she offers to the prosecution's testimony, and she's really the person that's attacking Andrew's character throughout this. She really has more of a first-hand knowledge of Andrew's character, so she's able to make those accusations. So let's just take a few quick glimpses of what she has to say. Counselor for 20 years. She knows everything about kids as soon as she sees them. Met Andrew as a sophomore student, could tell that he had a chip on his shoulder at the bottom of the pecking order, had to make his way to the top by whatever means necessary, some violent, some just outlandish. So one of the big things she offers that's good for a jury is her description of Andrew's fight his sophomore year. She describes that as being very violent, very gruesome, and that's something that we're going to play on during her testimony. And she goes on to say, you know, Andrew's doing a little bit better, his grades are 2.8, this, that, and the other. You know, she doesn't seem to think that change is genuine. And last, she's very critical of the peer mediation program that you'll see Andrew uses quite frequently to help. It helps his case, and so does Penelope Carter. It helps her. But here, Marcia Snow's pretty critical and seems to think that it's just a way for students to skip out of whatever class they don't want to attend. Alright, so let's turn to our direct examination of Marcia Snow. I'm going to act out both parts, attorney and Marcia. And again, one of the first things that the jury needs to know, who is this person? What is she doing here? Can you please state your name and occupation for the jury? My name is Marcia Snow. I'm a counselor for Street Law High School. Okay. How long have you been a counselor? I've been a counselor at Street Law High School for over 20 years. I've seen a lot of kids come through the door. I consider myself a good judge of character at this point and have a good read on when kids really want to change and when they're just playing the system. Now let's stop and look at this one real quick. First off, the importance of her being a counselor for 20 years. You know, when you think of somebody in a profession for 20 years, you kind of think maybe they're pretty good at it or should be. And that's the case for a jury. They're going to put a little more credibility and weight into her testimony because she seems to be more knowledgeable. And the last part of that, I consider myself a good judge of character and stuff. First off, we didn't ask her that, but it's one of those things that we want to get in. When we talk about Penelope Carter, we'll talk about how we can flip that to where it's actually a bad thing. Moving on, when did you first meet Andrew? I met Andrew when he came in as a transfer student his sophomore year. It was clear he was not happy to be here. So she's kind of saying, yeah, I know Andrew, I met Andrew, and then we're going to dive into this personal relationship she had with him. What kind of behavior did Andrew display when he arrived? He had a huge chip on his shoulder. You see, kids have a pecking order, and when you transfer in from somewhere else, you're at the bottom until you have the opportunity to prove otherwise. Did any of the teachers come to you with complaints? Yes. Some did, but that's to be expected. He's trying to make a stand, establish himself as a tough kid by going up against authority figures around him. It's pretty naturalistic if you think about it. Now let's take a look at these past two questions and answers. At the very end of the one we just read, it's pretty naturalistic if you think of it. That's simply a way to paint a picture in the jury's mind because we're talking about pecking orders and things like that. It kind of makes you think of kind of the natural way of things among the animal kingdom. It just paints a little bit of a picture. You know, he's really got a fight his way to get to the top. When you met with Andrew after his first detention, what did you observe? We met to discuss what was going on. At first he was very hostile to me, and I could see why other teachers reacted to him the way they did. But you can't judge a book by its cover, so I tried working with him, and eventually he began to really warm up to me. How so? He was respectful, even tossing jokes my way. I felt I'd really reached him, even though he is still getting all these warnings and detentions. So before we move on to the fight here, one of the things that we're really going to use to help Andrew, but she mentions it here, is once you took the time to warm up to him, once you took the time to gain his trust, it turned out to be a good kid. It wasn't so bad. Miss Snow, can you tell us about the fight that Andrew was involved in? And this is when our witness, Miss Snow, while she's on the stand at trial, she, naturally would probably portray herself as being really perturbed by these images. But you, as the witness, you're going to have to act that out. Put on a little Hollywood show. It was terrible. Broken noses, black eyes. No one even tried to break it up. Students, teachers, everyone was just so freaked out. It was violent. It was horrible. Get that in the jury's head. Let them know Andrew is capable of some bad things. Did you observe Andrew after the fight? Yes. He was all geared up. That little bit of sweetness I saw in him, completely gone. And to beat it all, he was not sorry for what happened, not for 1 second. Again, just act it out. Show them that you're passionate about that and it was real to you so it can be real to them. Was Andrew disciplined? Yes, both students were. However, Andrew seemed to think that the punishment was unfair and that the whole school was just against him. Personally, I don't think he's ever gotten over it. How's Andrew doing in school this year? He is a bright young man, but he's still very disrespectful to a majority of his teachers, and he's not learned how to react when things don't go exactly his way. To tell the truth, teachers are more likely to dread his presence in their class than to celebrate it. What about his involvement in peer mediation? Call me cynical, but I've been at this job a long time, and it seems to me that there's the possibility that these students may not really have problems. They may be using the program as an excuse to get out of gym class or English or what have you. Thank you, Miss Snow. No further questions, Your Honor. So let's talk about a couple of these last things. First off, she says he's a bright young man, but he's still getting into trouble and this and that. And as we'll see, how does she really know how he is now? Because she kind of gave up on him after the fight. It really kind of threw her off. So do we really want to hold that with so much weight? And that's something you'll tack on cross-examination. She talks about peer mediation and how it's very cynical. And again, this goes to her saying, I just know. I know as soon as I see. I've been doing this a long time. And you'll find ways to attack that when you cross, even through Penelope Carter. So, that closes the prosecution side of the direct examination.